I guess we see.
Welcome to this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast, The Wire Remixed, Season 3, Episode 11, Middle Ground. We've been doing this for a while now. Like, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, damn, we started this in April.
Yep.
And we're still in 2020. 2020 is now over.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, 2020 is never going to end, apparently.
the reason why I brought it up is we have been doing this since April, and everything that we've been doing in terms of these episodes has been leading up to this episode.
And honestly, like not to cut you off early. I mean, but this is the episode to do all this on. Like, I know you like to tell the number one. Like to tell like what ranking it is. Yeah. But I just wanted to say, like, before you even said whatever it's going to be in the top 5. Of course it is. Yeah. But I mean, like, this is my favorite episode of The Wire. This is my number one by far. It's not even close.
Yeah, we agree. No.
So this episode, let's just put it out there right now. This is it. We are here. Yeah, we are here. We are at the best episode in The Wire. Period.
No, this was directed by Joe Chappelle.
My humble opinion.
Joe Chappelle. It was written by George Pelecanos. George Pelecanos does all the big Wire episodes in terms of writing. He does all the penultimate episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's an amazing writer.
Yeah, he's off the charts.
Yeah, he's a writer. He's an author. Like, he's a for real. Yes. Like, this is what he does. He puts beautiful words in people's mouths. That's what he does for a living.
He did the Wallace episode in season 1. He did the Frank Sabaka death episode in season 2. He does, of course, the penultimate episodes in season 5 and season 4. So he is David Simon's go-to in this. This
when he shows up, it's going down for real. We're at the end game when he shows up.
Yes. So he wrote the episode. And
he did.
Get into the ranking. Of course, this episode is ranked number 1 all time by Vulture.
Yeah.
And we will get no disagreements from Mr. Sapp and myself.
Zero. This is zero. It's that slam dunk.
Yeah. So I'll say this. This is the number 1 episode of all time as far as The Wire goes, and I will say it is one of the great episodes of television history. I don't think I'm overstating by saying that.
I mean, that's what I said. We're gonna leave the show off like for real. Like, this is like, I was watching it. I'm just like, this is the most perfectly constructed episode of this series. And if this series is one of the greatest series of all time, which it absolutely is, then this is one of the most perfectly constructed episodes in television history, period. And I'll put this up against anything and won't even think twice about it. Won't lose an iota of sleep. You can bring whatever episode of anything else you want at me. I will stand here with this episode of The Wire, and I will feel 1,000% confident. I don't care what you bring. Bring The Sopranos on. Bring whoever. Mad Men. Bring them. Whoever. Get the episode. Let's go.
So there are 2 other episodes that are going to be coming up in season 4 and season 5 that are a notch below, but I really, really like, that are in the conversation. One in season 4 and one in season 5. But this is the best, though.
I mean, like, it is, but that's why I wanted to make that stamp early for myself, because I know greatness is coming up. Absolutely, greatness is coming up. This is a perfect episode.
No, there's no flaw in this episode. There's no better episode.
This is perfect.
This is a perfect episode. I just want to say that there are 2 episodes that in particular that we'll get to in season 4 and season 5, one in each that are in the conversation. But there's no episode that's better than this. So the epigraph.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong. Up until this point, how many have Vulture? It's Vulture, right?
Vulture,
or Verge.
Yeah, Vulture.
Yeah, but how many top 10s? I feel like we haven't. We've only had 2 or 3 top 10s.
We had one. We had one in season 1 and one in season 2. So this is the third. This is the
third top 10. So
we have a number of top 10s coming up.
From even Vulture's perspective coming up.
Yeah, four is going to have a number of top 10.
Of course, the Warriors.
Which it should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which makes perfect sense.
Again, that's why I wanted to say, like I know. I mean, anybody who knows me knows how I feel about season 4. You know, as a whole, absolutely, I will have definitive statements to say about the entire season. But in terms of a singular episode, it just doesn't get better than this. There's just no way any other episode can come close to this, because this is the culmination of 3 years of storytelling.
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing else that they could generate in 4 or 5 could culminate in the 3 years of storytelling of especially iconic characters. Like that. Anyways, let's get into it. I'm here. As you can tell, I'm here. I'm here.
You can tell I am too.
Yep.
I can tell you're excited. The epigraph.
Good stuff.
The epigraph was, of course, by One Stringer Bell. We ain't got the dream no more, man. And if you notice a trend in epigraphs in the penultimate episodes of leading up to this point, it hasn't turned out well for the character. You had Wallace in season 1, Frank Shabaka in season 2. So if you have a penultimate, if you say the epigraph leading up to this point, then that's not a good thing for your
character. Yes, good times are not ahead for you.
That's not a good thing for your character. So Stringer, this would be only
great for the show, not great for the individual character. And that actor, sorry, actor.
Yeah, not good for the character.
You need to update the IMDb page.
So for themes, I had 2 themes. I had, of course, Death of a Dynasty, and I had There Is No Middle Ground. Those were my 2 themes for coming into this episode. Again, this episode, to your point, again, it was a culmination of all of everything we've watched leading up to this. It was a very easy watch. I kind of felt like we're both educators. I kind of felt like a student who was taking a test and had all the answers to the test. That's what I felt like. I felt like the show has provided us with so much detail and great information leading up to this episode that it made it that much easier to watch. Even though there was some technical shit that we'll get into some of the tech shit that was just not confusing, but it was like, damn. We'll get into that though. Opening scene. Omar and Brother Mouzone. So Omar and Brother Mouzone face off in a Western type scenery. It's dark, it's at night. You have Omar who, has robbed somebody because he had a bag. He had a bag. He's carrying a bag. So he had robbed a stash house or something. Because he was carrying a bag. And all of a sudden you hear Brother Mouzone say, "That's far enough." Omar gives a curious look as if to say, like, how dare somebody rob me? The look on Omar's face was hilarious. And basically, Omar said to the extent, you know who I am? And Brother Mouzone says, Omar. And then they face off. And Mouzone says, toss the laundry. He says, toss the laundry, and I guess drop the gun or something to that extent. And Omar says, I'm not tossing anything. So you're going to have to like do what you have to do and make it quick. So they get into, he doesn't toss the gun. He pulls the gun out slowly and points it at Mouzone. Mouzone's pointing the gun at him. They get into a brief conversation, and with Mouzone saying basically, I want to ask you a question. Omar during that conversation says, I knew you was coming back. Wasn't about to wild out over it. Mouzone says, I'm sure you didn't lose sleep over it. And the scene ends with, of course, Mouzone saying, I want to ask you I'd like to ask you a question. Omar says, Omar's listening. So a Western type showdown with these 2 legendary, killers squaring off. And we all know about, David Simon loves Westerns. So that definitely had that type of feel over the course of this scene. Certainly in the conversation for best opening scene in Wire history as well, certainly. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Perfect. Every scene in this episode will be perfect, and it's perfect. And like, yep, David Simon does like westerns. All of us like westerns. This doesn't have anything to do with David Simon, in all due respect. This episode and this, I love that starting, and I love that analogy. I love that you brought the western in immediately, and I love you got the two gunslingers standing face to face off right there. And the reason why I love this intro so much, and the reason why this episode, I've been waiting so long for this episode, is so that now we can actually all just fully unload. And so this is The Wire showing everything that it learned as a television show. Like now, like literally as they're talking, like there's nothing realistic about that scene. There's nothing like grounded in reality, grounded in grittiness and everything. This is a fantastic scene. This is a amazing piece of dialogue. Human beings don't talk like that to each other in the street. This is The Wire becoming a higher television show. It's elevated itself now. And that's why this episode is so very, very, very important. And the reason why I say it doesn't have anything to do with David Simon and Eric Burns is because that's their forte. The kind of like the being very in the details, in the minutia of the everyday parts of the job and the city and the field and everything like that. And of course, they get all the credit, everything for this. But this is George Pelecanos. This is a writer taking his pen to these characters and saying, you know, like, throw all that other stuff out. We are going to just create beautiful scenes this episode. We've done all the hard work. To your point, the show has done all the hard work, showing us how realistic it is, how gritty it is, how urban it is, the feel, the language, the everything. It's done all that groundwork. We don't have to worry about that. Now, the writers of the show can unleash, and the characters, these characters with these great mythos, can just unleash, and we can just watch them unfiltered by, you know, the nitty gritty of the day to day, you know, detailed detective, you know, what move like, this is operatic right now. We've reached a different level, and the scene lets us know right from the beginning, this is going to be an epic episode like you haven't ever seen before, especially on this show at that time. And then especially, I mean, the only comparison you could have is some of the Sopranos episodes at this point in time on television.
Yeah, you know, neither one of these characters had any intent to kill one another.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like they're kind of like, you know, it's kind of like a boxing match from a standpoint. They were kind of probing and kind of trying.
No, Surreal, you guys zoom it out now. We here now. All that stuff we talked about, the stringer, the plan, and everything like that. Of course, we know they're not trying to kill each other. Of course, we know that. Like, now's the full circle. We're here. So when those two get together from the very beginning, think about the time. Think about everything we've watched up from this point in time, and then even think about the time when it was happening. We knew what was going to happen. We knew what this was about. This has never been about Omar and Brother Mouzone. No. Of course they're not going to kill each other because Omar shot him in the gut, and they had a conversation about it. And that's what launched the whole theories about them everything like that. So we here now. We at the end game. We here. We don't have to do any of that other stuff. We're here. We know what's going to happen.
So yeah, so definitely. So you're absolutely right. Definitely in the conversation for one of the great opening scenes ever. We go to from this scene up to the detail. So the detail along with Daniels, they're looking at the board. So I see Daniels looking at the crime board, and it was just, you know, it was just so much. It was so many pictures and so much information. To your point, just it was a small quick glance at the crime board, but again, another signal to what you've been saying, like in terms of we're here. This is the end game, as they show the entire crime board with the Stanfield and Avon and Stringer and all the information that's been collected. So you get a glance at that, and then you had the detail listening to Bodie's voice, trying to, as he speaks, trying to get FaceTime. Says as Bodie speaks, he says he needs FaceTime with the man. They're assuming that the man was Stringer Bell. Any thoughts on this scene after the opening?
Proud Papa. Daniels is looking at that board as a proud papa. Remember, the detail is his baby. It's his baby.
Right.
That's his detail. And the fact that they switched off a target and in midstream switched off another target, got onto this target, then was dealt the impossible hand of the burners and got all that up in that short amount of time, that shows his detail knows what it's doing. Proud Papa. I love it. I love that. Just that pan of him just looking at that board. Proud Papa. And yeah, everything else is up and running. They're ready. They're up and running. They're ready to go in.
So we go to Rawls and Burrell. So Rawls and Burrell are discussing how to deal with Amsterdam. They're waiting for Mayor Royce to make a move. Royce is discussing. So Royce calls. They're on the phone with Burrell. So Royce is discussing what to do with his team. You have Delegate Watkins, you have the chief of staff, you have a academic, and you also have Kurt Schmoke, who was the real life former mayor of Baltimore from 87 to 99, speaking on the positives of Amsterdam. The academic and Kurt Schmoke were speaking on the positive of Amsterdam, and they are starting to get to Royce from a standpoint of Royce thinking that he might be untouchable untouchable with the 14% drop in crime. The chief of staff and Delegate Watkins basically think that Royce is out of his mind. They said, Delegate Watkins says they will light into you if you don't act on this right now. And so the chief of staff and Delegate Watkins are agreeing that they should move immediately. Chief of staff says that Burrell is waiting for you to make a move. What were your thoughts on this scene as Royce is kind of going back and forth with whether or not to move on Amsterdam?
Yeah, in this perfect episode, this is setting up for next season. They still have their eye, on the future. So this is setting us up for next season.
Yeah. So to your point, look at the body language of Delegate Watkins as Royce, is even contemplating on not moving on Amsterdam right away. So that is definitely, to your point, that's definitely something that is some foreshadowing for the politics. So Royce decides to delay the move on Amsterdam, and Burrell said, and so at that point, Burrell recognizes, like, look, he's delaying this move because he's going to try to throw all the blame on the police department. I'm not going to go out like that. So Burrell decides to call Carcetti so he can spin it in his direction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, this is the hard work. This actually is about Carcetti. This is all of Carcetti's hard work paying off. He, just like police develop a snitch in their department, he's been developing Rawls so that Rawls.
You mean Burrell?
Burrell, sorry. So that Burrell would call him in a moment like this.
Yep.
So this is actually Carcetti's hard work paying off. So this is, again, part of the plan. And the plan is starting to bear some fruit. The political plan.
So you see, so we go to Stringer and Maurice Levy. Levy explains to Stringer that he's been rain made by Clay Davis. He completely he's completely was baffled that Stringer didn't bring this information to him before, and says, tell Stringer, look, man, this is an old game in town. Clay Davis was born with his hand in somebody's pocket. He broke down all the situations that Clay Davis took Stringer through in terms of meeting the dude at the lobby, saying that if you keep giving him money, but you keep giving him money. You gave him $250,000 on $35,000 for the light, for that light bulb bullshit that Clay Davis had made up. And he said that Levy tells him, I wish you would have brought this to me earlier. Stringers just, can't believe that Clay Davis would even consider that Clay Davis would even like run game on him, and just he was in semi shock as Levy is breaking this down to him, and it just showed you just how green Stringer was. He was completely just out of his element. In the part where he says, we bribing these motherfuckers, and Levy's like, there are no bribes. He said, you think a state senator is going to risk his salary walking in with a briefcase full of drug money? So he completely undressed Stringer, and Stringer is there as you see on my screen with the picture. You'll see on my picture when the podcast comes out, Stringer's sitting on the bench, just looking stupid and completely in shock. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, so here's the big deal. Everything you said accurate, and then now I'm going to add on just a little bit more. This is the most damning scene for Stringer's overarching how he has represented himself through the entire series. This scene right here damns him as a pretender and as someone who, when we get to that scene, Avon really, really calls out, like for real calls out. And the thing is, most of us in our life can afford to get hustled. We can afford to get hustled. It's embarrassing. It's shameful. We feel ashamed, everything like that. We might lose out some money. Usually that's what happens. We're getting hustled out of some money. And so yada, yada, yada. But it's not life-threatening in most cases. In the job and the position that Stringer's in, he cannot get hustled. He cannot.
No.
This is not a mistake he can make. And this is not a mistake he should make, because his instinct should be sharper than that. And the fact that they're not is damning and says a lot. And so I loved how this scene is, because you said Levy kind of like is like, I forgot the word that you used, but in my head, I'm like, man, that was even kind of what Ril said. Because Levy just mocks him. He laughed at him.
He was laughing at him. He was laughing at him.
Yeah, he mocked him. It's just like, yo, you're like, this is ABC. This is toddler school of hustle.
Right.
Like someone like Stringer, I cannot say this enough. Someone in the position, in the game that Stringer's in, has to smell out a hustle. Like it's like typing for a secretary. Like it's a necessary skill. And so what does that say about him that he couldn't smell out this hustle? What that says about him is that pride goeth before the fall.
Yep.
Right? Like he has gotten so into the idea of him as a businessman gangster, if that even makes sense, which it doesn't. The show is arguing that it doesn't make sense. As a businessman gangster, that he has completely lost his way. And, we will see the consequences of this.
Yeah.
And has lost his way for a long time. This is just another symptom. The fact that he got hustled is just a symptom. He's lost his way. He probably, and not even probably, I know this is what the show is saying, when we met Stringer, he was lost. He was on his way to being lost. He was in the middle of losing his way. And probably, of course, what they were talking about, like when him and Avon go about to their kids, probably this was not the game for him. Probably.
We'll flush that out.
I think the show has made enough points on that.
That's interesting. Yeah. We'll definitely flush that out. So the detail, we go back to the detail. It discusses how Stringer's phone is on a different network than the other dealers. So, they have Bernard, they have some of the other mid-level, they have Bodie, but they don't have Stringer nor Avon. McNulty heads out to get equipment to help them further along the investigation. What were your thoughts? Because that was, a lot of things happened in this episode. Of course, Avon, Stringer related, but one of the big reveals, one of the underrated reveals, was the fact that Stringer's phone was not on the same network. I thought that was a cool reveal as far as from a technology standpoint. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good reveal. I mean, we knew that because Stringer's phone was listed and they could just call it up. So we knew his phone was oh, no, I know what you're talking about. Sorry. So we knew he was in a space in terms of like answering and having an open phone. In terms of this particular part, like what you're talking about, like, of course he has a phone that's separate from the regular network that these ragamuffins are doing. One thing that has remained consistent of Stringer is that he keeps people around him that he feels intellectually better than. That's a big motivating factor for whoever gets close to him and people who worship him without thought. Hence Bodie. And so of course he wouldn't be on the network with these ragamuffins. And that just, and on the flip side of that, and it's always very cool when they do like flip the mirror like this, the show does. From the audience's perspective, we know these characters well. We know their thoughts. We know everything like that. From the police character's perspective, there isn't really much of a difference between Stringer and Bodie and in terms of like how they view them intellectually, how they view them as criminals. They know, of course, that Stringer's higher priority because he's higher up in the food chain. But in terms of all of them just being perps, that's what they are to the police. And so we know, when I keep going, of course, yes, I know as a viewer who has seen this, of course, Stringer would never be on that network. But to the cops, it absolutely is a revelation because they group Barksdale as all of them, not like, oh, that's just this one, and this person might be everything like that. And so I just always find that interesting and like it when they flip it like that.
So you had Burrell and Carcetti meeting. Burrell tells Carcetti about Colvin and Amsterdam. He tells him that the mayor is trying to throw him under the bus. And he recommends to Carcetti to contact Tony Gray, because if Tony Gray is going to take a run at Burrell, he will have some ammunition. Of course, he does not know that Carcetti is running for mayor. What was your thoughts on this?
Well, Carcetti hasn't announced.
He hasn't announced. I know.
Gray's already announced.
Gray's announced. But I said, I know. He doesn't.
Yeah.
Only a few people. Only Carcetti and his campaign people know that information as of now. What were your thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, setting up for next season.
Yeah. You have Agent Fitzhugh and McNulty discussing the equipment that we saw McNulty head out to sea to get. This is equipment that will help them flag down cell numbers, some cell numbers that will advance the case against Stringer. Now, I guess the interesting thing about this scene was the fact that the equipment was right under the noses of the police department. Fitz tells McNulty, you have about three of them. You have three of them in your backyard. So I guess I guess that was the one thing. That was the one particular thing that to take away from this scene. What were your thoughts on this scene?
I mean, the point of the scene is to get the momentum of maybe the police are going to catch. We just know what's going to happen. So that's why we know this scene doesn't really add up to anything else because we know what's going to happen. But the point of this is building the momentum that, the police are getting closer and closer and closer and could potentially get to them.
So we go to three.
But yeah. Keep going.
We go to Carcetti and DeGascino, of course, his campaign manager or strategist. They discuss how to use information. She tells him about Amsterdam. Or he tells her about Amsterdam, I should say. And she discusses how to use the information. They discuss how to use the information on Burrell that Burrell gave them to their advantage. So she advises him to reach out and speak to Colby. What were your thoughts?
Yep. Setting up for next season.
We see McNulty get the equipment for the flag and the cell phones. And then we see Carcetti attempts to goes out and attempts to reach Coben. He ends up getting Coben's cell number, attempts to reach him. Of course, that will set up for a number of scenes during the course of this episode with Carcetti and Bunny Coben. So Cutty and the boxers. So Cutty again is in heaven. He has his gym open. He has the attention of the youngins, but what he doesn't have is real equipment. So Cutty, some of the young, you know how kids are, start teasing his equipment, teasing him about his equipment. They're not lying because the equipment was old and raggedy. And Cutty, so we will see what this scene leads to. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, we'll wait till we get to the scene with him and Avon.
All right, big scene. Avon, Stringer, and Slim Charles. So Stringer comes into Avon's wartime safe, wartime where he's been since the war started. Seemingly, he looked like Stringer was a little fucked up, but he comes in angry. Number one, he's just got the news about Clay Davis, so he's pissed off about that. And then on top of that, he has to wait. He has to wait just to see Avon. Slim Charles, one of the soldiers, had him waiting. A guy that he doesn't know because Avon has a bunch of people that we don't know right now that are non-Barksdales that Stringer doesn't know. Stringer tells comments on that, tells Slim Charles about that, and then proceeds to ask Slim Charles to murder Clay Davis. Slim Charles, and let me rewind a little bit because this was even more interesting. So he asked to see Avon, and Slim Charles tells him he'll be along shortly. So even when he gets in to see Avon, he doesn't immediately see Avon. So he tells Slim Charles, "Hey, Clay Davis got to go." Slim Charles is like, "Look, I don't know." He's like, "The Clay Davis." So even Slim Charles knows who Clay Davis is. And Stringer gets angry and says, do I got to remind who you work for? And then Avon comes out the shadows and says, I think Slim is going to have to sit this one out. So Avon basically mocks Stringer, similar to Levy. Avon basically mocks Stringer, saying, "Oh, you gonna go kill a state senator now?" He says, "We had the federal police, state police, everybody. If you go down, if you kill somebody like that." So you basically need a day in the jackal, and that's state. That's we both will be stating our age because that's an old classic movie. I ain't even talking about the Bruce Willis one. I'm talking about the original Day of the Jackal that came out like in the 70s and what have you. So you basically need a day of Jackal to do some shit like that, which is an assassin, not a rough and tumble nigga like Slim. And Avon and Stringer says, he took our money, and Avon taunts him again, says, "I knew it." He says, "Well, I'll tell you about playing those away games." He basically says, "You got beef with them, that's on you." He says, "They saw your ghetto ass coming miles away, nigga." And Avon Stringer walks out with nothing from the standpoint of getting approved, having the approved killing of Clay Davis. He walks out again, taking another L, his second L of the day, with Avon. A lot to chew on with this particular scene. Great scene. What were your thoughts?
I mean, you go in first.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, Avon was pissed off, and he's been pissed off the whole season with Stringer behind this whole real estate shit. But Avon saw, we know Avon saw this like episode when he first came out of jail. He saw the hustle. When they first had that meeting with Krawcheck and they were on site when he had his helmet on. So he saw that shit then. And he repeatedly, so he's pissed off. Not only just the idea of killing a state senator like that. I mean, that's just crazy. But the idea that he's pissed off, but the idea that Stringer did not see this hustle coming from a mile away. And then you have the second part of it is the fact that, and I mentioned this episodes ago when Avon first got out of jail, that Stringer has been in essence replaced as the number 2 by one Slim Charles. If you notice, Slim Charles is Avon's guy right now. Slim Charles had Stringer waiting just to see Avon, which, we would have never thought that, saw that in season 2 or season 1. Like, you're not gonna see Weebay holding up a Stringer to see Avon. Like that shit wasn't gonna happen. So it just shows you how far Stringer has fallen and how quickly his fall was over the course of this episode up until this point. What were your thoughts?
Everything, you nailed everything I would have said. And then the only thing that I'll add in there is it's just fractured organization. This is the perfect example of it. Perfect example. If it wasn't very clear to Stringer how fractured the organization was, it was clear. It was clear at that point in time that there are two distinct voices, and his voice doesn't ring out with the muscle at all. Like not even a little bit.
No,
not even a little bit. And it's because of exactly what you said. How Avon feels about him. As we have seen with Avon, he can care about you as someone who he considers a brother or a relative, but that doesn't mean he respects you. Those are two different things. Yes. So he cares about Stringer, absolutely, because of all they've been through, right. But he has lost all respect for Stringer.
Yeah. No,
because of what you named.
Yeah, he has no respect for Stringer right at this point. It's like between the real estate thing, the way between what he didn't do with handling Marlowe, and also the nail in the coffin, of course, with the D'Angelo Barksdale situation. So Stringer, he has zero respect for Stringer, anything that Stringer says at this point. And I found it interesting too. So he asked him to kill Clay Davis, and then Avon basically like, no, you don't want to get gangster. You want to get gangster wild with it. No, handle your shit. He said, handle your shit like a businessman. Now you want to get gangster wild with it. He said, no, that shit is on you. He's like, no, handle it like a businessman.
Now actually isn't the time to get all gangster.
Right, yeah, that's what he says. Yeah.
Killing senators. So now's actually the time you need to go get your briefcase and go do something.
Right, yes. Yeah. So, again.
Yeah, that was great.
That was fun. Yeah, that was I like that aspect of it. Again, man without a country, not hard enough, not smart enough. That will ring out through the course of the rest of Stringer's time with the show. In terms of what Avon said a few episodes back. We go to the detail. They're setting up equipment, the Triggerfish equipment, which was called Triggerfish, outside, right across the street from Stringer's print shop. Of course, this equipment will be catching Stringer's calls. Catching Stringer's calls off his criminal cell phone. Of course, remember, they have both of Stringer's, they can collect both of Stringer's calls off the regular phone, the legit phone, and now the illegitimate phone. So now they were able to catch calls off his illegitimate phone right across the street from his print shop. What were your thoughts?
This is you kind of see, like, it's the visual representation of what's going on in their minds, how frantic everything is.
Yeah. This was, like, to your point, this was a smooth episode, but it was a very fast-paced episode as far as things were happening quickly. in this particular episode. And like frantic is a perfect word to describe that. We go to Bubbles down in Amsterdam with a youngin who starts to ask him questions about his t-shirts. And again, actually gave Bubbles an idea. So Bubbles, he says, the young guy says, "Hey, what about what happens when it gets cold? You're gonna have hoodies." So they get into that conversation. We will see what that leads to as far as Bubbles goes. So quick scene. What were your thoughts on that as Bubbles continues being an entrepreneur?
That didn't have the conversation between young boy and old head, did it? That's not the scene you're talking about.
No.
Okay,
This
is literally just him. Yeah. Just a scene. It's just a scene.
Bodie and Cutty. So Cutty goes to Bodie in order to try to reach trying to reach Avon. Bodie says, of course, Cutty, Cutty wants to reach Avon. We'll find out what it's for later on. Bodie makes a call, and then you see Bodie makes a call and says, "I got the soldier that walked away." What were your thoughts on this scene?
We got to talk about it all together.
Okay. So we go to Johnny. Johnny, has has been in Amsterdam seemingly forever. At least, since at least for the last 5 or 6 episodes. Maybe I think he's been there since it's open. To be honest with you. So he's getting high.
Yeah, they brought him in the truck. He
hasn't. He has not left. No, he literally has been there for like the last 7 episodes. He's getting high with another dude, and it's bad when another crackhead tells you to slow down. Like, so he's like, "Yo, slow down." Johnny's like, "I'm cool." Then the other crackhead says, "I'm trying to school you," which it just shows you where Johnny's at right now. Then he sees Bubbles selling shirts. He looks outside the window, sees Bubbles selling shirts. What were your thoughts on?
Yeah, this is why I was waiting for you to get to this one. This is one of those scenes where when I look on it with fresh eyes, I saw something different than I ever seen before. And so in the past, when I've watched this scene, I've always connected it directly with Bubbles, like Bubbles, Johnny, Bubbles, their relationship. The old head in the scene is a stand-in for Bubbles, and he's basically telling Johnny, as Bubbles has been telling Johnny, the whole time, like, you gotta slow down, because we all know where that ends if he doesn't slow down. But this time watching it, I was like, oh, and of course, since season 4 is like right there, I was like, oh, this is foreshadowing.
Right.
This is actually turning the tables on the Bubbles and being like foreshadowing Bubbles' failure. And that's that. I'll leave it at that. But this is the first time I recognized that. I know that's what that's leading to. I mean, I know that's the connection now, but I definitely didn't know it at the time. I don't even think they knew it at the time, honestly, unless they had that written out. And I don't know if they did. But now, knowing the whole arc of the show and knowing everything, I'm just like, oh, I see that direct connection. I know that they wanted to call back to that moment when they got there in season 4. Call back to this moment right here.
Yeah, because he sees Bubbles selling the shirts.
Yeah. We can't get into it because it's too heavy spoilers for season 4. No. Don't even. Yep. I'm just that's what I got out of it. Something different.
We go to the detail. They hear Bodie and Shamrock on a call as Bodie's calling. Bodie was calling about Cutty, saying he needs some FaceTime with the man. Calling Shamrock in the detail. Here's both of them on a call. Quick scene. Any thoughts on this particular scene?
Yep. I mean, it's quick scene. I mean, it's building momentum for Cutty to get to where he needs to be, and it's building momentum for the squad to get to feeling like they have Stringer. So it's very quick scene. That's what it's meant for.
So we see Stringer in his office, print shop office. You could feel the tension mounting up. He's getting frustrated. breaks a pencil. He takes a call from Shamrock. He switches his cell chip in his phone on the phone from Shamrock, and he switches his cell chip in his phone. What were your thoughts on this scene?
We'll talk about it when we get there.
The detail picks up the call from Shamrock to Bodie. We'll talk about that, flush that out later on. Stringer, now we'll get back to Stringer. He's still in his office and he's looking at the federal grants applications. He makes a call from his legit phone to the Western District Police Department. We go back to the detail with McNulty and Lester and Freeman. Freeman asked McNulty, is this something we should be concerned about? McNulty is not concerned, was not worried or concerned at all. Do you think at that point McNulty knew who Stringer was calling?
I don't think it matters, Ril.
It don't?
At all. Okay. No, because we know how this episode's going to end.
We get to Avon and Cutty. So Avon, of course, Cutty reached out to meet Avon. They hook up that meet. Cutty asked Avon basically for $10,000 in cash, $10,000 for boxing equipment. He goes through this elongated story that eventually Avon started getting annoyed. Was like, look, I don't want my picture on the wall. I ain't got time for this bullshit. Like, how much? And basically say, how much you need. So he asked for $10,000. Avon gives him $15,000 in cash. Of course, we know Avon from season 1 was a former boxer. That's how he had that picture. That's how Lester got his picture from that boxing gym. So he has that. He was Golden Gloves as a youngster, and we see another humane side of Avon. So as he says, take care of them little niggas. As he gives Cutty $15,000, and he generally respects Cutty, as we all know as well. What were your thoughts?
Okay, so sit back. This is gonna be a long one. I have all the thoughts on this scene. So the spoiler alert. This is my Chardine scene, and it goes to Cutty and Avon. I love this scene. Cutty especially. The way that he's vulnerable at the very beginning and apprehensive, and then the way Avon kind of laughs it off and breaks it down. But what this scene is all about is this is the heart of The Wire. This is why this show is special. This is why the series is very special, because the characters are multifaceted and they're people. They're humans. They're not evil. They're not good. They're not, heroic. They're not another action word. I can't think of it. But all those big words, they're human. And so in this moment, Avon's very, very human. It has nothing. I mean, of course, boxing, all the different things that you said about that. But he acknowledged. I was like, Surreal, don't you dare skip over that quote. And you didn't skip over it, because that's the heart of it. He's like, look at Cutty, look after the little niggas. He doesn't know who he's getting, who he's looking after. It's not anything. It's just this is a man, and this connects all the way back to that scene when Cutty's leaving. He goes, nah, he's a man for leaving, because Avon respects the strength it takes not to be in the game, and that is what is endearing about that character, and that is what is part of the humanity. I mean, this is absolutely just one of those moments where you just kind of look at the show, and especially a show that had a lot of, let's be real, honest, a lot of white faces behind the creators, the writer, the director, the creative producer in this episode, all white faces. For a show to be able to get at a moment like this is just wow, they're really paying attention. However it is that they're paying attention, whether it's collaborative. I mean, we all know the writing and everything about The Wire since then, so we know their process, and we know a lot about how they got to these moments. But at the time, being a black man, I was 24, a black man at that time, still felt like a boy, but black man at that time, and watching a scene like this on television, these are important. and it means something. It matters. It matters so much. It matters so much because it's not about vilifying or demonizing an Avon Barksdale character. It's not about lifting a Cutty character up and saying, oh, he's an angel. What it's about is about finding a commonality and finding commonality in these characters and finding commonality and therefore finding a commonality in all of us. What a good writer does, and this is why it's so important for this show to get to this point right now, what a good writer does, what a well-written show does, is it shows the mirror to society. Like, good TV is fine. David Simon has said over and over again, and you can tell in moments like this isn't about good TV. It isn't about top 10 lists. It isn't about, who had the best quote of the thing. None of that matters. It's about moments like this. And it's about showing true, honest to God humanity. And this is a true, honest to God human moment echoed in a show like this. It is, it's one of my hidden top 5 all-time moments. It absolutely is. It says everything. And so, and I do want to take this time to say this, even like the Stringer Bell, the fact that Stringer is flawed is what makes the Stringer Bell character so great. Like, the fact that these characters, like what I get on McNulty, the fact that I can get on that part of it is what makes that a great character. No one in this series is perfect, and that's why this series is perfect. That's why this is a great series and a great show. So no matter what my perspective is on characters, the thing that you will hear me say the least about the characters on this show is put them into absolute categories. Because if a character is either good or bad, then they can't make real human moments like this.
Right.
This is special.
Yeah.
And not a lot of shows ever do it. From that point to now, whatever, this is special. And especially 2 Black men having a conversation like this, I cannot say enough how much that is not seen. Not seen there, not seen since. 2 Black men, 2 grown Black men having a moment like this. It's as important as it gets. All right, I'm done.
No question. No question about it. Yeah, so a couple of things. Get to your point about Avon respecting strength. What Avon doesn't respect is self-deception, and that's why he and Stringer at where they're at right now. Like, he getting to your point about the strength. Even Avon, I'll give you 2 scenes, or I'll give you two separate scenes from previous seasons. Even going back to season 1, Avon got pissed off at the referee about the game because the referee didn't stand up to him. He's like, won't you stand up for yourself? So he got pissed off for the referee not standing up to him. And then he says, and then in regards to Marlo, even though he wants to kill Marlo, he respects the fact that he respects the fact that Marlo is taking him on. And he said, he's good. When he found out he killed the girl, Devon, he said, yeah, he's good. And then he says, I was just in one other scene about Marlo, he says, I was just starting to respect the motherfucker for showing some heart when he thought Marlo has quit. So yeah, to your point about strength, Avon does respect strength, and he respects.
No, I didn't say strength. I did not say he respects strength. Don't like.
No, you did say that. No, you said
no. I said no. Here. So this is why I don't want these things confused. It's not strength of power. It's strength of moral clarity. So when I'm going to use his name, his real character's name, when Dennis walks away, what I was saying was Avon respects the strength it takes to walk away from the game, because getting in the game from where they are is so easy to get into. So I just didn't want, this is not about physical strength. This is not about respecting, It's about the strength to make the move that gives you that moral clarity.
Got you. All right.
That gives you that ability to move and a freedom and not be defined by the circumstances that you're in. That's what he admired about what Dennis did.
Gotcha. All right. And I'll to that point, I will pose a question to you later on in the episode. We get to Stringer and Colvin. So we get to Stringer and Colvin makes another call to before he gets on the phone to before he meets up with Colvin, he makes another call to Shamrock. Then he meets Colvin he meets Colvin in the graveyard. He says we get confirmation that, of course, I mean we don't get confirmation. We knew this, that he was the one that sent the information about Avon being shot. What were your thoughts on this scene? Now, this is not the entire Colvin Stringer scene. This is like part one of that.
Yeah, we gotta talk about it together.
Okay, all right. So we'll move on to Freeman and Carolyn Massey. They get a call they get the latest call from Stringer, and they realize, of course, that they are getting closer and closer to catching him. Freeman says, next time we catch a call from Stringer, he's ours. What are your thoughts?
Yep, that energy moving towards making us think Stringer's gonna get caught.
Now we can get to the second part of Stringer and Colvin. So Colvin and Stringer, of course, are like, have been. We've had the street version of what they're trying to do, and of course the police version of what they're trying to do in regards to Amsterdam and the drug game. So you have Colvin, you have Stringer give Colvin the information on where Avon's located. Before he does that, he says, that there's my brother, but the war cannot keep going on the way the war. You can't keep going on like this. He says he wants Avon to only have to serve 5 years, the remaining 5 years of his parole. He already says that the guys that were Avon are going to try to claim all the guns that are there, try to claim all the guns that are not theirs, that are not Avon's to them. So just get him with the parole back up. Colvin says he must have done something to you, and then those final words. He's like, no, it's just business. Before you go, I just found it interesting, the fact that they, how well they knew each other. Now it makes perfect sense. Colvin was a cop 30 years. Stringer is a kingpin, so in the same Western district. So it makes sense that they knew that. It's not crazy that they know of each other per se, but I just found it interesting that he made that call to how personal their relationship was. He calls Stringer Russell. So I found that interesting. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, again, we're at the end game, Ril. We're at the end game. All theories must be availed at this point in time. There's no holding back. And so I caught that too. Speak your mind, Russell. Was
speak your mind.
Was the direct quote. I mean, he's a snitch at this point in time. So he's been working him.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where I felt like the connectivity between them really kind of come out in that scene. Is that they've been going back and forth and communicating with each other throughout this whole time. And so Bell is Colvin's snitch. On top of that, I thought that it was also interesting about it's just business line, right? Like it's like yes, the way that Stringer frames it, it's just business, but we know it's about Stringer's ego, right? Like he just got hit like with this whole like what he thought he was building in terms of where he thought he was going in his business. Then he got smashed in terms of that interaction like with Avon and the organization. So the only thing he actually functionally has left that gives him power is this Proposition Joe package. Is this head of this
the
commission over here. Yeah, the co-op is the head of this. And if he loses that, then he, in effect, has no power at all. Right. And so, like, yeah, while this is business per se, like in terms of, like, I'm sure he's rationalizing it. The character's rationalizing it in his mind of, this is about if we end up war, then we can get back to the package and selling da-da-da, and that brings us in money, yeah. But we know it's about Stringer's ego.
Yeah. Big scene here. Love this scene. Avon and brother Mouzone. So Avon is getting a haircut at the barbershop. Brother Mouzone comes in. And again, these scenes are going basically back to back, which these scenes are going directly back to back with Stringer, back and forth between Stringer, Colvin, Avon, brother Mouzone. Obviously purposely, as they're betraying each other. So brother Mouzone comes in. Avon's basically said, look good for a man. You look healthy. And then, brother Mouzone said, yeah, for a man who's been shot. And then brother Mouzone goes right in saying basically, hey, your man tried to have me hit. Omar told me this. Avon was like, you believe Omar. Why would you believe Omar? And brother Mouzone saying he doesn't seem like the one that would tell lies even at the point of death. And then you hear Avon mumble, Proposition Joe package. So at this point, Avon has put together basically almost everything that was going on while he was in jail with what Stringer was doing. And then you have a kind of a brother, Avon at this point saying, look, my man made a mistake. I'm willing to pay the cost. This is business. And brother Mouzone, of course, is not having any of that. He says, it's your word and reputation got you to where you're at right now. So, and it's only that alone is your only line to New York. So he pins Avon in the corner. Very interesting back and forth because, and this easily could be a Chardine Award scene as well for Wood Harris.
Yeah, it's a runner-up Chardine Award. Yeah.
His emotion. So Wood, if you really pay attention, really zero in on Wood Harris's face, Avon's face, because there was a thought of, damn, should I kill Mouzone? Or there was a thought of confusion, anger, and then resorted to what he ends up having to do. And then and this was a real key sequence where he looks at Mouzone with a mean face, and Mouzone drops his arms. Like quick, it happened really within 5 seconds. As is to say, like, look, we can do this. That's how I interpreted it. Like when he dropped his arms quick after Avon gave him like kind of like a mean look. So that again, both actors were just off the charts, but especially Wood Harris in this scene was as good as it gets. Him conveying what he had to do versus, and Mouzone puts Avon in a complete powerless state. One of the rare times you ever see Avon powerless. Maybe go back to season 2 when he was in jail, but Mouzone definitely painted him in a corner where he had to do what he had to do. What were your thoughts on this scene?
I'm going to tell you how I read this scene. Scene real. Avon and brother Mouzone come from the same place in terms of they're both soldiers. So Ril recognizes Ril immediately. There was no square up. They were not going to fight or anything like that at all. And the reason why this was so close on my chart, I mean, it was razor sharp. It was between that and the other scene that I said. And it was the atypical nature of two black men talking about rescuing and working with young boys instead of violence that won the other one versus this one, which is more typical because they're talking about violence. But what made it so powerful was what I interpreted with Harris' face is to be the inevitable. Like, even though he was going through the motions of talking about trying to save Stringer, he knows who he's talking to because he is brother Mouzone. Like they're cut from the same cloth, and he knows there's no way that he can actually make that okay. And to your point, Avon has found out a lot of information. Avon has known this day is coming as well. There's a lot of inevitability in the season. Like, and if you think about it, it's inevitability in our lives. I caution anyone, do not build up or break down these characters as like archetypes, right? Like, because that's not what the show wants you to do. And Wood Harris plays it from a point, you're absolutely right, of vulnerability, because Brother Mouzone is right there, but they're in his. Anyway, he plays it from a perspective of vulnerability, but the vulnerability comes from the inevitability of the action that he knows that Brother Mouzone has to take, because that's the exact action he would have to take.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So and I think deep down, Avon knows that Mouzone would be right in taking that action as well. I think that's a case. I think that was
because Avon would take the exact same action.
Yes.
He would take the exact same action himself. So absolutely, he knows it's right. Absolutely knows he's justified in taking that action.
Yeah. We go back to the detail, and we go back to the detail with McNulty. McNulty gets a message, of course, from Teresa DeGascino. We'll flush that out later on. They are on Stringer's phone. They take a call from Stringer's phone, and then he and Freeman begin to contact both Daniels and Perlman. So again, things are moving fast towards the inevitable. Quick scene. Definitely a bit of more setup. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, setup.
Go back to Cutty with his boxers. They asked about fighting other boxers from around the area. Cutty, says he can get something done in terms of that. We'll see how that pans out. There's a major scene in terms of that. In terms of how that pans out, we'll talk more about that later. Colvin and Carcetti have their first of many scenes. They end up meeting up. I guess we can flush all of this out together when he takes his when they start discussing. But this initial scene was when they first met up. Carcetti, of course, says, you don't take a councilman's calls, and Colvin says, hey, been on some some unexpected leave, abrupt leave. But there were a number of scenes between these two that we can definitely flush out. Mayor Royce Kurt Schmoe. Kurt Schmoe, of course, is the ex-mayor of Baltimore in real life. Royce is trying to find a way to spin Amsterdam, and he says something here. He says, how can they say that we are not a law and order administration? Watkins, of course, Senator Watkins gets more frustrated. Kurt Schmoe says in this scene that they'll be calling you the most dangerous man in America they'll be calling you the most dangerous man in America if you take this action. Now, give you some background information on Kurt Schmoe, besides the fact that he was the former mayor of Baltimore. He really was ahead of his time from a standpoint of how to go about fighting the drug war. He wasn't about, of course, about locking people up and things of that nature. He was about, in terms of drug treatment, he wanted to attack it from a public health standpoint, really decriminalization. So ahead of his time, and was the mayor again for 12 years in Baltimore. Any thoughts on what were your thoughts on this scene?
We'll talk about all of those things together.
Carcetti and Colvin. So Colvin begins to show him the nice neighborhoods where there are no pushers, where he's moved the guys from off the corner. He shows Cardi the nice neighborhoods as they're walking in the western, in the western part of town. Any thoughts on this scene?
setup.
Daniels and Agent Fitz. I love this scene. I love because I'll explain why. So Agent Fitz, of course, it was in season 2. Daniels puts pressure on Agent Fitz. Says, "Look, you owe me," based off what happened at the end of season 2, where the shit came up bad in your house with the mold that the mold that the Greeks had and what have you. He says, and Daniels basically says, "I need my wire. We're going for string. We're trying to get an affidavit on Stringer Bell. I need my wire. I don't need to go through any red tape with Bay Wireless and what have you." Just I love the scene in terms of how Daniels held on to that and just pulled that trump card out at the perfect time. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, they owed him.
Carcetti and Colvin. Carcetti and Colvin again. You have Colvin showing Carcetti again the benefits of Amsterdam with the clean neighborhoods and with the clean neighborhoods and what have you. They are explaining the benefits of Amsterdam. Again, more setup. We will flush that out later on in a couple scenes. McNulty, Perlman, and Phelan. So they get the affidavit for Stringer from Phelan. McNulty, of course, is in his feelings because of past dealings with Phelan. Phelan reminds him that hey, it says, hey, didn't we work on this case with this guy before? And of course, talking about from season 1. And yeah, he basically says, McNulty says, yes, that's the one. And then he reminds McNulty to, get over it, get over it and move on in terms of being in his feelings. And then they swear in the affidavit to get the affidavit on Stringer Bell. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, this is part of that energy of if we're going to get to Bell.
So we go to Carcetti and Colvin go to a community meeting in the western side of town. The people are happy about the drop in crime, and one of the community members, not an older lady, but a middle-aged lady, stands up and tells a story about how a police officer introduced himself on the beat, gave her his card, and basically says that's in terms of face-to-face, that is what real policing looks like. Really tied in everything that Colvin has been talking about, trying to preach to Carver this season in regards to walking the beat and that face-to-face and that face-to-face and that difference between policing and soldiering. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, that was what Colvin was saying to Carver. This is what the show was saying to the viewers. And so her speech was to us. This is their manifesto on what they believe policing to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard, so far ahead of its time, man. When you think about defund the police and all that, So yeah, that was a definitely.
This just to be clear, that wasn't saying defund.
That wasn't defund the police.
What that was saying was just a more humane way of policing people, which has been asked for many years to their point.
Yeah, that's not defund. No, this she's not saying defund the police from that scene, but I was just saying in terms of just her bringing just another way of policing, what policing should look like per se.
Well, what her point was, that's how policing looked for a very long time.
Yes.
And then it took a shift and a turn.
And again, this is Carcetti seeing the benefits of Amsterdam, as Colvin says. When is the last time you've seen a community meeting like this? Then we go to another Carcetti Colvin scene where he tells a story. Colvin tells a story of a funeral director, a racist funeral director who was asked what would he do if he had to serve blacks, and he says, and the guy says, I would burn them all. His name was Stryker. And Carcetti says, well, that's sick. And Colvin says, yeah, you can say what you want, but at least I knew where he was coming from. What were your thoughts on that story and this scene?
The story is I have a lot, but I'm not going to say all of that. And so the thing I'll say is it's a statement on politics. It is a statement on policing. It is a statement on a lot of that, and essentially it's rolled up into, as we know, both as being Black men. I would just rather you tell me up front you don't like me instead of doing all this other stuff to take my knees out from under me.
Yeah, and that's why you hear Colvin say, at least I knew where he was coming from in terms of just from that standpoint. Yep. We go back to the detail of Fitz. The agent Fitz, they're setting up the equipment, for the inevitable in terms of with Stringer Bell. So setting up that equipment. Colvin and Cutty. So Colvin, at this point, Cutty has saw all the great parts of the benefits of what Amsterdam has brought. Now it's time, he said, Colvin tells him it's time to see the ugly. He allows him to go actually down to Amsterdam. He says, you need to take this journey on yourself. Take this journey by yourself. I'll be back here. And Colvin explains to Cutty that he basically is happy with the decision that he made in terms of Amsterdam. What were your thoughts?
Keep going.
No, what were your thoughts? I'm done. What were your thoughts?
No, I'm saying, yeah. We'll sum it up.
We have McNulty and Teresa DiGascino. Of course, they meet at a restaurant. She attempts to get information about Amsterdam from him. He was able to pick up on it and decides to leave, decides to take his keys and basically leave and leave the restaurant. So that signified the end of any type of relationship that they were going to have. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, and it's also kind of like the final. We talked about like the different points where McNulty's like rehabilitating himself and going in a different direction. This was the final kind of like deal with that. Like she called him, she was making an effort, going to dinner, everything like that. Like another McNulty would have made a different move, but instead of when he felt bad about himself, again, being human, like all these human moments, that's what makes this episode great. That's why this is great. All of these human moments. He feels bad about himself. Like when she starts talking about Colvin, it makes him feel bad. And instead of doing something self-destructive, he does something productive and just walks away. Human moments that we can all relate to.
Yeah, the old McNulty would have slept with her.
I'm done.
Yeah. So yeah, to your point, you're absolutely right. The old McNulty would have slept with her because she had her hope. She pulled out.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about the old McNulty. We want to talk about the growth. Growth.
No, it was growth. No, it was growth. No, it was growth in that. It was growth in that moment.
And we've done a good job of identifying all of these moments throughout the episodes. So this is not just something that happened. This moment is very much earned.
No, it's been building up. Yeah, no, it's been building up over the last couple of episodes. Of course, we get to, a goodbye, so to speak. Avon and Stringer on the balcony. So, Avon Stringer on the balcony of Avon's penthouse. They're having a drink, and they're discussing their past. And Avon basically tells a story that basically, you could say, encompassed their entire relationship. He tells a story about when they were kids and Stringer tried to steal the Batman set, and they didn't have a yard. And he tried to steal the Batman set, and they didn't have a yard. And they got chased by security guards. And then you hear, they kind of joke a little bit. And then, even before that, Stringer was talking about discussing Marlo, saying, I wish I would have dealt with that sooner. And Avon said, you should have dealt with it sooner, but don't let it lay on you. Don't let it lay on you. He says, I'm just going to enjoy this view. And again, even in that moment, Stringer goes back to the money. He's talking about, what could I have bought? I could have bought this downtown real estate if I had as much money as I then as I had now. So Avon says, don't worry about that. And then we talk about, then you hear Avon or Stringer say the epigraph, we ain't got to dream we won't have to dream no more. After Avon said, just dream with me. And Stringer says, we don't have to dream no more. We got real shit. We got real estate we can touch. And then Avon, Stringer says, I can't get too fucked up. I got somewhere to be tomorrow. Avon asks, where are you going to be at? And then Stringer gives a curious, concerned look after that question was asked. And then Avon says, just want to know where you're going to be. And Stringer, Avon, says, they do their normal thing that they had done, saying us, saying us. No, he said no. Then they before they embrace, he says, you need to relax more. And Stringer says, I don't take my, me, I don't take my job too seriously. And then Avon repeats what Stringer said in the graveyard to Colvin. He's like, nah, just business. And that's when Stringer knew something was wrong. That's when Avon said, no, just business. And then they embrace, hug. And then after you see Avon look, you see a great camera shot. And there were a number of great camera shots over the course of this episode. I forgot to mention that. A number of great shots from the opening scene on. You see a shots of two glasses on the balcony. And as Stringer leaves, you just see one. You see both glasses, but then Stringer leaves. So again, a lot of what we know was coming, but also some more foreshadowing. One of the epic scenes of all Wire history, without question, a goodbye, of two characters and storylines between these two characters. What were your thoughts?
No, yeah, you named it. It was their goodbye. You named everything about the scene.
Yeah, did you feel that Stringer thought that he could be killed when Avon says no, just business, and he gets that look? What do you think was going through Stringer?
You're reaching, Ril. You're reaching. You're reaching, Ril. You're reaching. Yep. You named it. It was a goodbye. They're saying goodbye to each other.
So give you some background on that scene. In the book, The Pieces Matter, Avon said, Wood Harris says, in reading that scene, there was a thought that, one of their characters, could die or what have you. There was also a thought that they said it kind of felt like one of the last scenes during that scene. So, you can check out, it's a great book. Check out that book. We go to Cutty and the boxers. So Cutty goes to sets up the fight between some other kids around the area. You see Justin getting beat up. And it was by the young kid who we saw in the previous episode at the gym that Cutty was visiting. That dude. So we'll see how this transpires. So at the beginning of the scene, Justin is getting beat up. What were your thoughts?
Shut up.
We go back to the detail. So the detail, they hear a call where it says Stringer, where they hear Stringer and Shamrock. Stringer says, or Shamrock says, are we good? We're good on those other two hitters, those out-of-town hitters. And then we realize, and the detail realize, that Stringer has finally been caught. Then Stringer kind of semi-reprimands Shamrock says not on the phone, But to me, it was too late. He already said two out of town hitters, two out of town hitters. Again, I thought this was a great scene from the standpoint of just continuously showing you how far Stringer had fallen. As careful as he once was, this Shamrock is his guy. Stringer's number two. Even on a legal phone with a different chip and what have you, you don't say two out of town hitters. Like they had been doing a good job of using code words throughout the course of the season and what have you, and when speaking. But this was just another example of where Stringer stood at this point in the season. And then of course the detail McNulty and Freeman celebrate as they realized they finally caught Stringer on the wire. What were your thoughts? But what were your thoughts on the scene? Hello? So we
sorry about that. I said a couple of different times. So the point of the scene was for the detail to be happy.
Okay. So we go back to Cutty in the gym. You see Justin continue to get beat, but showing a lot of heart. Cutty, of course, is impressed. Cutty, over the course, Cutty, of course, is impressed, with Justin. What were your thoughts?
Set up.
We go to Stringer. We go to Stringer and his bodyguard with Krawcheck. So this is the next day, of course. They get to the site, the construction site where Stringer wants to put up the condos. And of course he's taking out his frustration over what's happened with Clay Davis on Krawcheck, who's of course we know is a developer. Krawcheck claims not to know anything about what's going on with Clay Davis. Stringer accuses him and Clay Davis being in cahoots, saying basically threatening Krawcheck, saying y'all gonna, if this shit doesn't get fixed, y'all gonna pay for it, and what have you. And we see Omar and Mouzone, of course, discussing a last minute strategy outside the building as they are about to go in, saying and basically Omar telling Mouzone that all everything is boarded up. Everything, the back door and upstairs is boarded up. And Mouzone kind of taunts taunts Omar, saying we're going to go through the front. And then Mouzone says Mouzone says that's new for you. And before the inevitable, what were your thoughts on this particular scene?
Describe the whole entire scene, Real. There's no point in stopping there.
No, I'll get back to Cutty. I'll get back to Cutty wrap up that part, because I want to end with the Stringer. I want to end with the Stringer Omar. So we go back to
there's another string. There's a Cutty scene. I didn't even remember that Cutty scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the
okay. All right. Yeah. So if there's a Cutty scene, then that's set up.
Yes.
I wanted to put this scene and the finale together.
So let's wrap up the Cutty part, the Cutty scene. So
sure.
It's Cutty with the boxers. The fight is over. Justin lost, but Cutty's proud of Justin. The kids are cheering Justin on, and Cutty says, you got a lot to learn, but you got a lot of spit and fire.
There you go.
So that and then the kids are kind of saying Justin, cheering his name, what have you, and that was that part.
I'll put a button. I forgot. I just forgot about the thing because the other one. I'll put a button on this. I will. And so this puts together everything that we've been talking about with Cutty, right? Like he's doing it the right way. He's being honest in that, and then because I spoke so passionately about the interaction between him and Avon. Not only does like he go up to Avon as a man and ask him as a man with a complete plan for all the different stuff, which is why I love that scene. But then these are the fruits of his labor. Like what he's doing actually matters, and that's why it's a big deal, and that's why he's seeing the success that he's seeing. And so this is one of the buttons on his journey through this particular season. And as we're looking at where all the reformers end up by the end of the season, he will have had the most definitive kind of, yep, I started here and now I'm here.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no question.
And better for it. And people are better for it.
Yep. So we get to the big one, the finale. We talked before about Stringer being upset at Krawcheck, thinking that, not finding out that he and Clay Davis were in the cahoots, or Clayton, thinking that he and Clay Davis were in cahoots. So basically threatens him as far as, threatens him in terms of paying for everything, in terms of all the money he's lost. We see Krawcheck, says that I don't know what you're talking about, but you got a problem with Sandra Davis. And then you see Omar bust in, shoots Avon's Stringer's bodyguard. Stringer runs. Stringer runs through the building, runs upstairs, but he finds that he has no way out as far as all the exits, or all the exits are boarded up. Certainly was symbolic. Gets to the top, and he sees, of course, one brother Mouzone who was waiting for him. Mouzone tells him to go head back down the steps. He heads back down the steps, and he's, of course, trapped in between two killers in Omar and brother Mouzone. And he goes on this plea to basically saying, if it's money that you want, I'll be better off to y'all alive. Says that I'm not strapped. And then Omar goes in and basically says, look, man, it's not about your money. And Omar hits, to me, this was like the best line in the whole scene. Basically, he says, your boy gave you up, and we ain't have to talk to his ass neither. And that had to cut deep for Stringer hearing that. And at this point, Stringer is resigned to his fate and says, I can't talk. I guess there's nothing I can say because that's going to change our minds. Get on with it, motherfucker. Before he finishes motherfuckers, they blow him away, and you see him, get shot, multiple times. And Omar and Brother Mouzone look at each other as you see the final shot of the B&B Enterprises or B&B site where condos were going to go up. A lot going on in that scene, symbolically in terms of the Stringer Bell character. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, so let's put a button on Stringer. Let's tell the entire arc of it. Way back in season 1, you might remember me talking about the death of Omar's lover being the original sin of the Barksdale organization. Is because of this moment right here. Like literally, Omar brings it up at Stringer's final moments, and in de facto, the entire Barksdale organization's final moments, right here. So that was one. And then because of also another direct action that Stringer made with Brother Mouzone, he has literally put himself in a no-win situation. By the moves he's made, he has caused his own death. This is through nobody else's fault but his own. But also in taking this action, it destroys the organization itself, because as great as Avon is, he is only great in one department of running that organization. Stringer actually did have a very, very much to do with the business side, the distribution side, and all of those different types of things. And not only is that, but it was Avon who who metaphorically and literally takes the gun and puts it to his own name's head. He literally blows, by killing Stringer, he's killing the Barksdale organization. So he's literally dying by his own hand as well. And so the first word that comes up when you think about this ending is it's a tragedy. And I remember when I saw this for the first time, I am an English lit major. This is my heart. This stuff is my heart. And I was like, I'm watching a modern day tragedy happen on screen. And they executed it amazingly. Now, I've read all the back story since. And so I can identify when the show itself switched and when they knew what was going to happen with Avon and Stringer, and how they started to put the pieces together, and how by putting the pieces together of how they were going to end, they actually figured out the construct of the season, and then by definition, the rest of the show. And that's what elevated it to a new level. And that's why I say this season became very thematic, and this season became very operatic, because it ends with a tragedy. And the definition of a tragedy, like when we're talking about in storytelling, is the unfortunate end that you meet is directly because of actions that you've done. And that's what makes it a tragedy. They were destined to kill each other from the moment they met, which is why all those callbacks to how they grew up, and you can point out the definitive characteristics that Stringer had from when he was younger to now, and the definitive characteristics that you had and you saw from Avon to now. The two, from the moment they met, were destined to go on this journey that would end in their mutual self-destruction. It doesn't get more tragic than that, and that's why The Wire elevated itself. And so there are many flaws in Stringer's character, and it's very important that the heroes of your story, especially when you're going back in history and looking at like Greek literature where this kind of like tragedy was born, it's very important that your hero, your leader, Odysseus, like put a name that everybody's familiar with in your mind, that your hero has many flaws. Like that's a big part of being a tragic character. You can't be all good there, but you're going to keep beating your head against the wall. Now, the tragedy of Bell is that the ideal that he wanted was a pretty worthy ideal. I think all of us at the time really kind of latched on to that ideal, right? Like that you want to be better than the circumstance you in. But the problem is the ideal, where he was going in that ideal, was in the business of pain and death and killing. And you cannot uplift that. It's impossible to uplift that.
No, there's no, you don't.
And so, no, well, hold on. Let me go, Ril. Let me go. I'm talking about this. I'm taking it off the literal page. I'm talking about this in terms of the tragic sense of the character. This has nothing to do with the actual physical moves any character is doing. This is why I'm saying, this is why this being a tragedy is such a big deal, because it's literature. This is not television. This is literature at its best. So Stringer, being the one who kept beating his head against the wall, like, I want to turn this into a business, I want to evolve the game. That is literally pushing that boulder up the hill, and it's always going to come and roll back down on him. And we saw all the different ways that it rolled down on him. That's Stringer's personal tragedy. Avon's personal tragedy is that the people that he trusts around him are the ones who are going to let him down the most. and the ones who were going to be so much a part of his pain. And the only way in which the only way in which Avon's personal tragedy, the only way in which he can attain success is by the death and destruction of others. And in particular, the people who are going to pay the biggest price are the people who are closest to him, right? The man he considered his brother had to kill his sister's son in order for X to move forward, which alienates his sister. It's all tragic. Every part of this is tragic. This is everybody having a hand into their own self-destruction. It's beautiful, and it's what makes the show beautiful, and what makes the character of Stringer Bell beautiful and iconic. Done.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, when you started talking, when you started breaking it down like that, I thought Romeo and Juliet. And even though they're not lovers, but I thought that's the immediate.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. And the Stringer character. I remember when I first saw this, and this was before. This is 2004, so they were not. First of all, the television and even shows were not killing characters like Stringer Bell of this magnitude. This was shocking. I was like, what?
Wait, an intelligent black criminal on top? What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, they were not creating, let alone for about killing. They weren't creating. They didn't have these characters. They didn't have these characters on television, number one. But as far as even going past that, as far as even a major character on television, they were not killing major characters of this ilk on television. This was before Ned Stark got his head chopped off. This is before a number of it's become, we see it all the time now. It was not happening in television at this point. And, if the pieces matter, Idris Elba was surprised. Idris Elba thought that the show was going to end up being about him moving forward. He got that call from David Simon. He was, surprised. He thought, and he was upset. To be honest with you, he was a little surprised and upset. And again, you're a working actor. Of course, this is your livelihood, so that's a natural emotion. But basically, Simon said the character. Basically, Simon was like, "Look, this show, if it keeps going on, it's going to the show will end up being about Stringer Bell if it goes on this way. We're trying to tell a larger story than just about one particular character." So from that standpoint, as far as Stringer, we all know the mistakes, but the thing about a couple of things that stand out to me is, number one, we both watch a number of mafia movies, and we both are familiar with the Commission. I kind of look at the co-op and the Commission, not exactly the same, but that whole idea of having a bunch of gangsters together and trying to work through.
They're absolutely the same thing. They absolutely are.
But
you could say Stringer is Lucky Luciano.
Yeah. But this is the difference though with Luciano running the Commission. Commission was about business and what have you, and what have you. But there was no. They still killed people. They killed Bugsy Siegel. You know what I'm saying? Luciano killed Bugsy. They knocked off his own guy. And you can do the research, not you particular, but my audience can do the research on how that went down. You go watch the movie Bugsy, a number of readings and live, go check it out on your own time. But there, Stringer tried to take violence out of drug game, which is not possible. It's just not. It's impossible. It's just impossible. So, his ideal in terms of wanting to go to that next step, as far as wanting to get away from corner shit and shit like that. Yeah, that's cool. You want to not worry about owning every corner. Yeah, but there's still going to be. This is the drug game. There's still going to be violence within drug game, and I want to kind of. And there's a lot of thought. There's a thought process too about the Stringer character. And I read a lot of stuff on it where this is the idea that he was completely trying to go legit, which I don't agree with, because he still wanted to make money from drugs. He still wanted to make. He still was going to be on the co-op, which still getting paid from selling the drugs. So he wasn't trying to go complete. He wasn't trying to go completely from that standpoint. But yeah, to your point, it is a tragedy. Avon and Stringer were one heartbeat. They could not exist without each other. That's the bottom line in regards to the Barksdale. They were one. They were not. You can't separate those two. It's impossible to separate those two without the organization. Without the organization falling apart. And to my point, and I want to mention something about, when Omar says your boy gave you up and we had to talk to his ass either, that just lets you know that at that point, Avon, that Stringer was alone. At that point, he just had no friends. He had no friends. He had no friends or no allies at all. So that, I mentioned that before, that had to cut deep. Before he gets that bullet, that had to cut deep to say, yeah, your boy gave you up. And we didn't have to talk to his ass neither. Man, meaning Avon, Omar basically saying we didn't have to convince him to give you up. Just a one of those scenes that you can I watched the scene a number of times, and just him shot in his own condominiums and just his world closing in on them just is, you can't, it's hard to write a better death scene of a character of this magnitude. Just a brilliant scene, and there's no way you're gonna get away from Brother Mouzone at that combination. that combination is gonna be unstoppable. Themes, we of course talked about the death of a dynasty. Flush that out in terms of the Barksdales. This was, even not knowing what was going to happen in episode 12. Well, we did know what kind of was going to happen in episode 12 in terms of what Stringer did to Avon. So yeah, this was in essence the end of the Barksdales as we know them with the death of Stringer Bell. So it was, and again, this is the game, so to speak. Drug dynasties go away, all, flip over all the time with different crews and what have you, and families, even within the mafia and things of that nature. That happens all the time. So you had that going on. I had also mentioned there is no middle ground. So what I mean by when I said that there's no middle ground, you can't, with Coben and Stringer, Coben tries to find a middle ground between Amsterdam and policing and between stat chasing and doing Amsterdam. That's not going to happen. And with Stringer, there's certainly no middle ground with being a criminal and a businessman. And that's why, Avon mentioned not hard enough, not smart enough. You got to pick one. You're not going to be in this game. You're not going to be a strict businessman along with being a gangster at the same time. So yeah, from that standpoint, there's no middle ground. And of course, Stringer and Avon could never find a middle ground in regards to their philosophies and ideologies in terms of how they thought. They never could find that middle ground. Avon had his view, Stringer had his view. Thought about this in regards to Stringer and Avon. We've seen relationships within the criminals and high-ranking criminals go, sideways in movies before, but I don't know if I've ever seen two people just completely destroy each other and destroy each other and themselves at the same time, the way Avon and Stringer destroyed each other and basically in essence killed each other at the same time. In regards to, I was going running through my brain, I'm like, Nino Brown, G Money, is like, nah. Nino Brown was the guy, and G Money betrayed him, but it was like, and G Money made a fatal mistake, and Nino Brown took him out. I could include that. Scarface and Manolo was like, nah. Scarface just was cooked up, and Manolo slept with his sister. So I like this. I've never seen anything like this from a standpoint of two high-ranking criminals, kingpins, completely destroy each other from within, and just not only like I said, from just I mean Avon, has him killed and what have you, and that's his science, his death certificate to have Avon, to have Stringer killed. Stringer calls the cops on Avon, which is, we know how that, snitching and all, and how that, it's not a civilian calling cops. This is your man. You call the cops on your man to bring him down. So, I've never seen anything like that in television, and even up to this point, still haven't seen anything like that. Have you?
It's a tragedy, so it has to feel tragic so that it really stands out.
In regards to Brother Mouzone and Avon, because a question just popped up in my head. If, hypothetically speaking, if Stringer had not had D'Angelo killed, does Avon still make that move?
Wait, what is happening?
No, I'm saying if Stringer had not had D'Angelo murdered in prison, would have Avon made that move to
No, nothing would have happened because he wouldn't have had him murdered. So of course he wouldn't have made that move.
What were your who were your MVPs as far let's go MVPs.
Avon and Stringer.
Okay. Yep. I think that's definitely
yeah. Slam dunk. That's Kobe Shaq. Come on now.
Yeah.
We know. We know how this one's gonna go.
And your Chardine Award went to
all right. I said mine earlier. It's my spoiler alert.
I actually had I had Avon and actually, you know what? For MVP, I actually had Stringer as the MVP. I actually had Stringer as MVP, and I had Chardine, Avon, and Stringer. So, basically the same, same difference from that standpoint. This episode was everything that I thought it was going to be, and then some in regards to the rewatch, and to think again, we talked about this. We talked about this with episode 8, when him and Stringer go at it over D'Angelo. Like, that could have been a season finale. This definitely could have been there's still one episode more. Amazingly, there's still one more episode left in season 3. So, and the season finale, by the way, was phenomenal too. We'll do that next week. But again, the amazing thing about the show is they keep pushing the envelope as far as, you think this could be the season finale. No, this could be the series finale, or this could have been the series finale. To be honest with you, this could have been a series finale. So I found that incredible as well from that standpoint. But there is certainly one more. There is one more episode left before we wrap up season 3 and head towards season 4 of The Wire. Any final thoughts?
Great episode.
No, it is definitely. It definitely is all timer. Again, one of the great television episodes of all time. We already talked about the fact that it's the greatest Wire episode of all time, and of course, Vulture agrees, and Vulture agrees with that. I've always haven't agreed with Vulture. Some of Vulture, majority of them have been fine. But this one kind of was a no-brainer. George Pelecanis said that he, and the Vulture article was 2 years ago, so they're relatively fresh rankings. But Pelecanis said that he's never written anything better. He said he's never written anything better than this particular episode. So, you know, and that's saying a lot considering how long he's been around. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Ril Dil podcast, the Wire Remix. I hope you enjoyed this as much as we did. Thank you, Robert Sapp.
All right, sir. Be safe, be healthy.
No question about it. As always, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/C/Ril Dil podcast. I will see you next time on the next episode of edition of the Ril Dil podcast. Have a great rest of the evening.